Good evening and happy Thursday once again. Welcome to the Man Cave. It's that time of week once again, one of my favorite nights of the week. Brother Jeff is not with us tonight. He is traveling. So Tanya's going to be helping us out again tonight. Hey, Tanya,
Hey, what's up?
from all the way upstairs. Brian,
Yeah.
glad you could make it in with us. But yeah, it's that time again. And it's been cold. Where's everybody from tonight? I haven't gone back over to the chat window yet. Uh, so I'm going to have a drink. We're going to kick off with a drink like we do every week, and I'm going to have the same thing I had last week. I'm going to have a little bit of this barrel proof Elijah Craig because I've about got this bottle emptied, and there's more in there than I can handle tonight for sure. But I'm going to work on it. We'll get a couple fingers of that in the old glass here, and that last little bit, we'll save it for a rainy day. If you haven't had, or if you like barrel proof stuff, this Elijah Craig's a good one to try, and it's reasonably priced as well. I don't remember exactly what I paid for that, but it's less expensive than a typical barrel proof. Elijah Craig is kind of a, I don't know, it's a value point bourbon at all levels that you find it. Uh, I've been happy with it. It's a very smooth drinker for the price. Mike, glad you could make it with us. Vince and two Mikes, Anthony, Quinn, Garvin. Nice. Some of our regulars here this evening. So it is that time of week once again. If you're having a drink with me, let me know in the comments what you're having and where you are visiting from. Russ is having some red wine, so we'll get this thing kicked off. Tanya, you got a coffee going?
Yeah, I've got a cappuccino happening tonight.
Oh. Robert, good that you could make it. Coral, excellent. That's fantastic. I appreciate those of you who have donated to this live stream. Once again, we had another couple donations last week to help me front the cost of doing this. It doesn't cost that much, but every little penny helps. Uh, I've had several people donate. I get donations anywhere from $5 to $50 or more sometimes. So it makes it very easy to help cover the cost of this. This software costs me about $50 a month, roughly. And like I said, if there's any left over, it's going to go towards uh, some of the equipment that we'll review here. And if you can spare a buck, I appreciate it. If not, it's no big deal there either. But I'll post this information on the screen again a little bit later, and we'll talk about it again after we get started. Auckland, New Zealand. There we go.
Auckland. I
Angels
want to
Envy.
go to New Zealand so bad. Oh,
Is
maybe
is
one of these days.
Hey Quinn? Is that rye also finished in, like, I think, what is it? Is Angels Envy finished in a port barrel or a sherry barrel or something like that? Is the rye finished the same way? I've never had the rye. Uh, Cannons in Augusta. Awesome. Awesome, Russ. I appreciate it. Thank you. Russ has contributed before, so I do appreciate that. Elijah Craig small batch. That's a good one for sure. Brian, glad you could make it. Like I said, Jeff's not with us tonight. He's traveling. I can't remember if he's traveling to or from his cabin in the mountains or he's getting ready to go on a cruise for his anniversary, and that may be where he's traveling tonight. I forgot to ask him where he was going when he told me he was traveling, but he may be out of touch for a few days. Northeast Georgia. All righty. Is that in the Savannah? That's Southeast Georgia. Savannah. I don't know what's in Northeast Georgia. I don't think. Rum barrels. Okay. Yeah, I haven't tried that. Pensacola. Kevin, glad you can make it with us. Nice. So I hope everybody's had a good week. I know I have. I've had a lazy week and I've gotten a few things I wanted to get done. So actually, we're going to talk about that steak au poivre that I mentioned. Well, crap. My Google. Yeah,
Did the photos just go?
yeah, they did. So let me get logged back into Google here. Won't take me but a second. Before we talk about that, I want to talk briefly maybe about there's two things. Let me get back to a couple of pictures here. My mom took me out for lunch one day this week, and I went to a new barbecue place in town. I don't know if I saved the pictures from it. I guess I did. And I deleted all the photos off my phone yesterday. So no, I don't have photos of that. Daggum.
Darvin,
Oh, I
I
do.
have
I've
actually
got it.
been through Cardinsville before. One of my best friends in college was from Alpharetta, and I went home with her one time, and we managed to go through there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I had lunch with my mom one day this week, and we went to this Jim and Nick's community barbecue. And I understand that this is a chain. It might be nationwide. I don't know. I don't know where they go in terms of distance, but it originated somewhere in Birmingham, Alabama. And I will always try a barbecue place at least once. And I went lunch here with my mom yesterday, and I shot some photos of their menu just for my reference. But these cheese biscuit things that they have come out kind of as an appetizer before the meal, and it's kind of like a cornbread biscuit, but it's lighter than cornbread, but not quite as fluffy as a biscuit, and it's got cheddar in it. Anyway, they're really good. And I ordered pulled pork. That's always what I get when I go to a barbecue place for the first time. It'll give me an idea of what the rest of the barbecue at the place is going to be like. And this pulled pork was not a letdown. It was very good, very flavorful, very tender. And I got the South Carolina style mustard sauce with mine on the side, of course. And I got that with a side of barbecue baked beans and French fries. So that's what I had for lunch the other day, and I think that combo is $15. Or it's not a combo; it's the meat and two sides, and they had quite a few sides to choose from. And I think you add a drink onto that, it's a little more, but it's getting expensive to eat out these days, guys. It really is. But I don't know if any of you have ever tried this place or not. If you have, let me know what you think about it. It was good enough that I'll probably go back at some point and try something else. But like I said, the pulled pork was good enough that it makes me believe they're capable of making good food there. So, and Devin talked about the Brunswick stew there. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
that's coming up next week. I'm going to make another batch of that next week with some of the pulled pork I made this week. I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front that that's probably what I'll be talking about here next week will be Brunswick stew. Uh, I don't know if I'll make my recipe. I've got my recipe. I don't know if I'll make it exactly the same or not. It Brunswick stew is one of those things you can put whatever you like in it, and I like to put okra in mine, and people seem to complain about that. People have love hate relationship with okra.
Well, I'm just
But,
telling you, John, those people are wrong.
well, I don't know.
Gra-
I understand okra has a is a texture issue with a lot of folks, so I can understand why some people like it and some people don't. I've had okra cooked about every way you can imagine, and I like it. So there's that. One other quick thing we'll have a look at here. I cooked a pork butt. I've shown you guys the Huntsman grill that I got here that I've been working with lately. I'm trying to make that grill my go-to grill over the next 6 months or so I can really put it through its paces and see what I love about it and what I don't love about it. And this week I decided I was going to cook a pork butt on it. I got the new what they call the next level cooking system that I ordered with it. In fact, before we go to that, let me see where did I put the next level cooking system. Let's have a look at that. This is the Huntsman grill with nothing in it, and then your charcoal grates go on the lower level, and there's another ring in there for this next level cooking system that holds these half moon heat deflectors. There's two of those that go in here. There's about 3.25 inches of clearance underneath that heat deflector. It's kind of tight under there. There's not a lot of space, but there's probably enough for most things. So you can put both heat deflectors in there. It comes with two of these heavy duty stainless steel grill grates. And this is one of the things that I'm personally going to like most about this is being able to get that grate down closer to the charcoal. I don't know if you can see in the picture here, but this tab up here and this one over here are the tabs that hold the upper ring, and they're another 4 inches higher at least, further away from the charcoal. But this setup's going to give me the ability to do 2-zone cooking and get down really low to the coals if I want to sear something really hot. You can put both of those in down there. You can split it like this and have one heat shield, one grate, one heat shield, a grate, and then your upper grate. You can have, there's a lot of, this gives you basically the same sort of configuration options that you would get with the divide and conquer system on a Kamado Joe or whatever, and the Big Green Egg. They've got their system now, and I don't know what they call that. If any of you guys are Big Green Egg owners and have that, leave a comment here and tell me what that's called in the Big Green Egg community. I just don't know what they call it, but it's the same kind of setup. It also comes with this rack that mounts on the bottom shelf of the grill where you can put your heat deflectors in there. That rack will hold 2 heat deflectors or 2 grill grates. It won't really hold both of them or all 4 pieces. It'll hold 2 at a time. And the question has already been asked, is there going to be an option to buy an additional rack? And the answer was yes, probably in the future, but not until they get inventory available where they're not constantly back ordered on the grills and the accessories. This accessory was back ordered for quite a while. It took me a while to get it after I ordered it. I'm still waiting for the rotisserie, but that rotisserie may be coming sooner than I expected. So we'll have some more info on that when it comes out. So that's what the system looks like, and I'm really happy with it so far. It gives you all that versatility that you really want in a grill like this. So, Tanya, what's going on up there? Is your TV on?
No.
Nope. I'm picking up some noise from somewhere.
Not even the cats are quiet right now.
Okay, I don't know where it's coming from. Anyway,
maybe outside, maybe someone's at the post office.
No, it's coming through my headphones.
Huh.
Okay. Anyway, pork butt. I decided to cook a pork butt on the Huntsman this week, so I made up a batch of my homemade pork rub and egg expander. That's what it's called. Thank you, Brian. That's correct. That's what they call that system in the Big Green Egg community. I made a fresh batch of my homemade pork rub, and this is real easy to make. I didn't put a recipe screen up here, but this is 1 part granulated garlic, 1 part granulated onion, 1 part cracked black pepper, 2 parts paprika, 2 parts sugar, and 3 parts kosher salt. That's what's in here. And you can, if you like a sweeter rub, you can increase the sugar in it to your own taste. If you like it hotter, you can put whatever extra spices you want in there. But this is what I use on pork every day. And we're gonna have another episode on rubs a little bit later, and I'm going to talk some more about that. But I got a pork butt. Food Lion had pork butts on sale last week. I think actually yesterday was the last day of the sale. They had 99 cents a pound again, so I got another 10-pounder, and I scored it like I always score it, and I seasoned it, and I fired up the Huntsman. I got charcoal, my small charcoal chimney full of it wasn't completely full. I dumped all this charcoal into the base of my Huntsman. I started out, I was going to use lump, and then I realized that some of the lump I had was big enough that those heat deflectors weren't going to sit down nicely. So I took the lump out and decided to run this cook on briquettes instead. So I pulled, I don't know, 15 or 16 briquettes out of the center and put them in that charcoal chimney and fired them up, and then just dumped them back in here. And I know this looks like a lot of smoking wood, but it's not. This is 3 chunks of hickory that I took my hatchet and chopped each of those chunks into 6 or 8 pieces, and I didn't even use all of it. So there's ultimately probably 2 to 2.5 chunks in here. And I don't know how much charcoal's in there total, but it's as much briquette as I could get in there, because at this point I don't know how long this is going to run in this grill. So I put the heat deflectors in, and I just laid down a piece of foil on top of the heat deflectors to help keep them a little cleaner, and put the regular grates on. And I was fired up to 200 degrees. I was going to run my same process and let this run overnight at 200 degrees and then ramp the temp up in the morning. So I've got some other things going on there that we're going to skip over. I put the bud on, and I put the meat probe in so I could monitor the temperature of that as we went. And in the morning, this is actually 12 and a half hours or so after the start. I was pretty happy with what that looked like at this point, and I was at about 160 degrees, 160 to 165 internally. I got to figure out where that noise is coming from. Tanya, I'm going to mute you for a second.
Okay.
That went away. I'm going to keep you muted for a minute, so that source of the noise is coming from up there somewhere. Just hang tight for a minute. Or can you still hear it? Or could you hear it at all? Okay.
I never heard it, but like several other people said that they did hear it.
Okay, it went away when I muted you, so we'll figure that out. But anyway, I decided to wrap this guy at this point, so I wrapped it in foil and finished the cook. What I typically like to do at this stage is wrap it up and ramp the temperature up. But I had to add some charcoal at this point, because at this 13-hour mark, this is what I had left, and I didn't have enough in there to finish the cook. So I added some additional coal to it and then fired it back up. But I was unable to get the temperature up over about 250 from doing this. So the cook ran. It took 16 hours to finish up, and I didn't take a picture of it actually before I put it in the cooler to rest. But here's what it looked like. Came out. My bone came out completely clean. Very nice smoke ring on this meat, and it made a beautiful pulled pork, a whole tub of pulled pork there. I got right at or just shy of 6 pounds out of that. It was it tasted good. I almost forget sometimes, and I have a hard time admitting this, but I'm going to say this, and I'll probably catch grief for it. But I really do enjoy the flavor of pork barbecue or beef barbecue cooked over briquettes, and I'm not really sure what the difference is in the flavor that comes about on that meat, but it takes me back to the days where I was cooking on the Weber Smoky Mountain, and when I was cooking on my ugly drum smoker, when I was using briquettes exclusively. It's a flavor profile that I like, and I probably will do more of that. And you can cook with briquettes in your Kamado if you ever want to experience that. It just makes a mess of ash that you have to clean out after the cook. Brian, I'm not sure which brand this was this time, because these were in cryovacs that didn't have either label on them. It wasn't in a Smithfield or Swift. Typically, what I get at Food Line is Swift. I don't typically get Smithfield at Food Line because they have Swift pork belly and they have Swift tri-tip up there. So this is very probably Swift. I don't know, but it was in a clear cryovac that didn't have a brand name on it. So that really, I couldn't tell you. I don't know where it came from or what it's doing. But I was very happy with the results I got on that. I need to do some testing with lump charcoal to make sure that see how it does with lump. But like I said, with only 3 to 3¼ inches of clearance underneath that heat deflector, I'm going to have to make sure I've got smaller pieces of lump. But I think if I fill that thing up with lump, I'll probably get that.
But John, can you cook with smaller pieces of lump?
Well,
joking, wink,
some
wink.
people can. Yeah, I can cook with any of it. I know some people can't cook with lump that's not at least the size of a softball, or their food's going to be ruined. But I'm pretty much beyond that. I can do it. So it performed extremely well. I was very happy with the results, and I'm still testing and I'm still providing feedback. I'm trying to provide feedback to the company that's making this. Like I said, they did provide me with the grill. I bought the accessories. I paid for the next level rack, and I paid for the rotisserie whenever it shows up. But this is an impressive grill, and it's kind of a cross. It's kind of a hybrid between a Kamado grill and a kettle grill, and it's got a lot of the features that I love about a kettle grill here. One of which is the fact that charcoal grate, which we'll look at here again in a minute, is 22 inches in diameter. It's not smaller in a conical shaped bowl. It's 22 inches. So I can have a huge cooking surface in this grill. I can have a cooking surface in this grill that's a direct heat cooking surface that's bigger than you get in a Big Joe. So the Big Joe charcoal grate's not 22 inches. I think it's only 18. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while since I've cooked on a Big Joe. One other brief thing that I'll talk about here before we talk about the steak cook is I bought the new fan from Fireboard. My original Fireboard fan is about seeing its better day. I've worn it out. It's making noise, and I don't trust it anymore. I've got no complaints about it because I've had that fan for somewhere between 4 and 5 years. I bought it when it first came out, and with the Fireboard 2, and I may have even had it longer than that. I don't remember exactly when I bought the fan, but it's got 1 million miles on it, and it's very durable. I've got no complaints about it, so don't think for a minute that I'm sore because I'm having to replace that fan. It's a consumable part, everything, nothing's going to last forever. So I was so happy with that. I wanted to get the Fireboard new one. And this guy, I think I like it even better. It's got a larger diameter fan that spins on it, so it spins at lower RPMs. And this fan is beautifully silent. You don't hear it. It's very quiet. And we'll see how it works out. But I've been using it when I need to run the fan on the Kamado Joe. But I just wanted to mention that because it's the same price as the other one. I think it was $69 if I remember correctly. It's well worth the money. So getting behind on the bourbon, and that's the main reason we're here. So, I need one of those baseball helmets.
Yeah, that's got the little sip.
Cup holders and a straw where I can do this while I'm talking. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe Santa can find me something like that.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I can see this leading to problems. I can see you getting a little too tipsy to make it up the stairs.
Well, all right. Okay, steak. I've come to the conclusion that I want to do a series on steak sauces. I have a pet peeve that I know all you know about. The fear and the hatred of steak sauces in the barbecue and backyard grilling community just drives me crazy. And I want to try to change at least some people's minds about steak sauces. My personal belief is that most people don't like steak sauces because they don't experiment out beyond the stuff that you can buy in a grocery store. When most people, if I come and ask you if you want steak sauce on your steak, people are thinking about A1, Heinz 57, or Leah and Perrins, or a host of other things that you can buy in the grocery store. And I've got nothing against those sauces. I really don't. And we keep A1 in Tanya's refrigerator upstairs. We use it for a lot of things. And it's good for a lot of things besides meat. And but some of the best steaks I've ever had have been taken to the next level by a sauce that was put on them. And it wasn't an A1. It was something that was made in the pan or made alongside the steak. So I wanted to start out this week by showing you a simple steak cook that I did for lunch today. Yeah, Melinda, a lot of great sauces start with the demi-glace, and that's one of the French. Well, it's a derivation of one of the French mother sauces. So I don't know if I'm going to go to the extreme of making that because it is hard to make, but you can come up with something similar to it by reducing consomme. You can get consomme in the grocery store and reduce it and come up with something that'll get you by. So steak au poivre, and if I'm pronouncing that wrong, pardon me because I do not do French. And Tanya, for you, that's steak au poivre.
Thank you, baby.
If I get that
I
right.
love to hear it when you speak French that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think I have just married a bona fide.
Yeah.
Bona fide dude.
Poivre, and it translates to steak with pepper. So the au poivre has nothing to do with the sauce. Steak au poivre is a peppered steak, and you'll see when we get going here. It's probably got a little more black pepper on it than your typical steak. So the first thing I did was chop the shallot, and I did not take the time to make sure it was chopped nicely and evenly because I was in a hurry by the time I got around to doing this. The ingredients in this sauce are very simple. We're going to use that shallot. We're going to use heavy cream, bourbon, and black pepper. Now, I know that I think the traditional way to do this sauce is with a cognac rather than bourbon, but I'm not a cognac guy, so I use what I have on hand, and I used a little benchmark uh, in this. Also, what I don't have out here is I did add just a little, I had a couple of dashes of salt to it after we get it going. So I've just got everything ready. I got one of my pepper grinders and put it back to its coarsest setting because I wanted this pepper coarse. And another thing I'm not showing here is I've got another little container out there with some whole peppercorns that I'm going to add to it when we start making the sauce. So I got my small chimney out and got one of my little charcoal baskets, and I made me a hot spot in the grill. Just a very simple hot spot that I can cook over. And I put my grates on, and guys, this is not the best looking New York strip I've ever had, but it came from Food Lion also because I did not take the time yesterday. I had committed to going down to the chef store, Tanya. I was going to buy a whole strip loin yesterday, and I just didn't go down there and do it. Maybe next week, but that's going to happen. I seasoned that. I need to get back to my other. This is not the right list. Hang on. I'm getting us there. Now we're talking. Back here. Here we go. Okay. Put the grates on. I salted this guy, and then we put down a fairly heavy layer of this extremely coarsely crushed black pepper. I used my hex mill on this, backed all the way out to the coarsest setting to get this. So actually you can see that there's probably a couple of whole ones. There are a couple of whole ones that made it through the grind on there. You do both sides of the steak like this. And I took one of my multi-clad pans and set it out over that charcoal and let the pan get hot. And once the pan was good and hot, I drizzled in a little bit of avocado oil. That's the only neutral oil I have on hand at the moment. And I don't like using olive oil on this because I'm cooking too hot for olive oil. And once that oil gets hot and shimmering and you start to see smoke coming from it, you drop your steak in and you just let your steak. I actually flipped this steak several times, and I didn't take all the pictures I should have of it while it was cooking. And also stainless steel is perfectly fine for nonstick cooking. You just have to let your steak stay there until it releases itself. It will stick initially, but when it's time to flip it, it'll let you flip it. And I flipped it, and I wasn't quite happy with the sear I had, so I ended up going back and putting some more sear on it before we were done. But this right here is your fond. And this is the main ingredient, one of the main ingredients of the sauce. The pan drippings and the fond, they call it fond. I don't know where that came from. That I'll have to look up where the term fond comes from when you're talking about the drippings and scrapings on the bottom of a pan. And Bandit, Tanya, mark that comment. I want to comment on what Bandit said about carbon steel. I'll tell you why I didn't use that when we get done. I have carbon steel. So I tossed my shallot in, and I used my wooden spoon to just saute that shallot for 2 or 3 minutes to get it loosened up. And then we deglazed the pan with that bourbon. And I think that's a 1/3 cup measuring cup of bourbon. I didn't really measure much here. I just got the smaller measured cup and the bigger one. So once you put the bourbon in, I use my wooden spoon just to stir and scrape up all those bits off the bottom of the pan so they get into the bourbon. And I'll let that cook until that bourbon reduces to, I don't know, I may have had 2 tablespoons of bourbon left. I reduced it by more than half. I probably could have reduced it and even a little bit more before we went to the and on the edge of this picture here, you can see I just moved that steak off to the side of the grill away from the heat just to get it out of the way, because this sauce comes together quickly. And then we add the cream, and I think I added a cup or so of heavy cream. And you just stir that, and you're going to want to kind of keep this stirring constantly, because this goes quickly. And you bring that to a boil, and it's going to come to a fairly rapid boil, and you keep stirring this, and it's going to thicken. And you don't want to over thicken this. The longer you leave it there, the thicker it will get, and it will get very thick if you're not careful with it. So that's why I like to have a place where I can move it off the heat. But you just want it thick enough where when you put a spoon in it and rub your finger across the back of the spoon, it leaves the path. It doesn't fill in. I think that's called nappe in French cooking. You want it just thick enough to where it's not watery, but thick enough to where it will stick to the food, not just run off the food you're putting it on. So that's where I wanted to land here. And I also put I put a couple of dashes of salt in that, and I put a teaspoon or so of whole peppercorns in there at the same time that I put the cream in. So there's my steak. That's what my steak looked like finished. And then we just spoon on some of that sauce, and it's delicious. I don't know how to describe this if you've not tasted this before. It's a cream sauce. The bourbon, you can't taste the bourbon so much because the alcohol is cooked out of the bourbon, and you can flambe that if you want to help that process along when you put the bourbon in the pan. But this is about the color you're looking for. You don't want to overdo this. You don't want to make it dark. You could darken this into a darker sauce, which is something that we'll do later when we make a different style of sauce, like Melinda talked about earlier, using a demi-glace or a consomme. We'll make a darker sauce later. And there's a lot of variations. This sauce, you can do so many things with it. This is a very basic sauce, but this is the one I wanted to start with because it's simple. Anybody can make this sauce. It's really hard to mess this sauce up. And it comes together in 5 to 8 minutes if you've got everything prepped and ready to go, which you always want to do that. Have your onion, have your shallot chopped. You could put garlic in this too if you wanted to. If you wanted to put a half a teaspoon or a quarter of a teaspoon of minced garlic in there, would be good. You could you could add mushroom to this, or you could add cayenne pepper to this. You can do whatever you want to do with it, but this is just kind of a basic steak au poivre, and that's the kind of sauce that you'll find on it. In reality, when I'm looking at this picture right here, I should have taken the time to chop that onion a lot finer, or maybe even mince the onion, because I don't like how that sauce particularly looks in that photograph with the larger chunks of onion in there. Or I could have reduced them down a little bit more and let them cook a little longer, but it was delicious. This is what I had for lunch today. So I pulled the steak out of the pan when the internal temperature on the steak was about 125, and it finished up to a nice medium rare. And I did forget to take a picture of it after I cut it in half. I should have done that, but that's where we landed. And that's the first steak sauce. Ryan, glad you could make it in here with us tonight. Hanger steak. I can't find hanger steaks anywhere. I've seen hanger steak on a menu maybe once, but I can't buy it anywhere locally. And I know Chef Eric said that's Chef Eric's choice. When he can find them, he likes the hanger steaks. But I'm gonna have to find one. I'll have to maybe just order one from somebody and give it a shot. Bandit, let's go back to that carbon steel pan question for a minute. Carbon steel would be good for doing this, but the reason I don't use carbon steel or cast iron when I'm making a sauce is the dark color of the pan changes. It makes it hard to see what the color of your sauce is, and if you're concerned about the color of the sauce you're making, you can't make it in a dark pan because it makes your sauce look darker than it is, and you may end up with a sauce that's a lot lighter than you really wanted it if you're cooking it in a dark pan.
So that also answers Randall's question as well.
No, I don't think the sear would be any better with cast iron. The reason the sear wasn't as good on this steak right away with the time I cooked it's because the steak's not thick enough. This steak was maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, and I would typically like to have 1.25 inches. And in all honesty, steak au poivre is most commonly done with fillet rather than strip. And you're going to have if you're going to a French restaurant or any decent restaurant that might have this on the menu, you're going to have a 2-inch thick piece of meat, and there's not going to be any problem with the sear. So butter and garlic. Yeah, Brewster, that in itself is a sauce that we're going to talk about down the road at some point. It's just like a scampi, something along those lines. Is any kind of seasoned butter. People don't think of that as a sauce, but if you pour it over a steak, it becomes a sauce. So yeah, seasoned butter. Butter and olive oil make a good combination too. The butter, when you put butter in a pan with olive oil, butter has a water content, and that water content helps temper the olive oil to keep you from smoking your olive oil and making it become bitter. Bandit, I haven't dry aged anything lately. I'm still barking about beef prices. Beef prices have me really upset these days at how much it costs to buy beef. Yeah, Ryan, don't sweat the cognac. Use bourbon or whiskey or whatever you've got. I'm definitely not going to go buy a bottle of cognac to make a sauce with because I don't drink cognac. And that's all it would do for me. It would sit on the shelf until I decided to make this again. But
John,
yeah.
No, don't fall over. I actually keep a bottle of cognac up here because it's the
There you
secret
go.
ingredient in my lentils.
So Tanya's got cognac that I didn't know about. So
Yeah.
I could have used it if I'd have known she had it. But then again, this is the man cave. And there's no cognac in the man cave. Well,
No, it's upstairs in Tanya's kitchen.
Yeah. You know what?
What?
Isn't Grand Marnier a cognac?
Oh Lord, you're asking me liquor questions?
I don't remember, but that would be orange flavored. That wouldn't work well in here, but
it wouldn't be good with my lentils either.
Yeah, this came out great. I was very Canon Tanya's got a stash.
I know, surprise.
Yeah, she's probably got some Guinness beer stashed away in her cupboard up there somewhere also.
Yeah, I like to bake with Guinness. I usually try to keep some Grand Marnier up here and some cognac. But that's about it. And I never use it for drinking. So I don't know if what I have is good for drinking, but it sure tastes good in the food I put it in.
Yeah. But I want to do more with steak sauces simply because it pisses people off when I post about steak sauces. I love it because it upsets people tremendously. If I had $1 for every time I've heard a perfectly cooked steak doesn't need a sauce, you wouldn't be seeing me here tonight because I'd be retired. I'd be on a beach somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, Anthony, I like to add just a little splash or so to my lentils towards the end of the cooking time because it adds this really nice flavor that you're sitting here going, what is this? And you can't quite put your fingers on it. And the person who put it in there is sitting there smiling, going, yeah, I know what it is.
There are a lot of red wine sauces that people make for steaks also. What's the one? What's the beef bourguignon? That's not a steak, but it's like beef.
Okay, so like I make that a lot, and I'm gonna have a really good recipe for this. Yeah. It's one of there are like a few recipes that I feel like I do
once
really
again,
well.
the last 2 times I've made that what have I done? I've used Guinness instead of
You
wine,
Guinness
and it's
instead of red wine.
delicious.
Yeah.
It's a different flavor, but it's awesome.
Yeah. So it's
So,
beef bourguignon when you use the red wine. When you
yeah,
use the Guinness, it's an Irish stew.
it's beef McBourguignon when you use the Guinness.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's there's no rules. Well, I don't know. I should not say that because as long as I've been doing this, if I had $1 for every time somebody called me out for something not being done properly or not being done traditionally or not being done to spec, I could
It's not
retire
authentic.
also. Yeah, it's not authentic. Yeah, everything you see me do is what's called the man cave version, which may or may not be by the book. But this sauce, and also one other note about this sauce. This is important. There is no such things as leftovers with a cream sauce. You've got to use that cream sauce right then, and you're going to toss out what's left because you can't reheat that. It breaks and it cannot come back together. So what you don't serve right out of that pan, you just toss out. It will not last. And I've asked several people, including Chef Eric, about that, and there's no workarounds for that. The cream, I don't know what the chemistry is that makes that cream do that. But I learned this one time because I made a cream sauce to put on
I
some
remember
chicken and
this.
rice. I made a mushroom cream sauce and put it on some chicken and rice and put it in a container and took it to work. And I had a mess when I heated that up in the microwave. I had no idea it's the first time I had tried it. I had never, and this wasn't that long ago. This was maybe a year or two ago, and I had never tried it before, and I didn't realize it was going to be a problem until I tried it. And
Yep.
yep, it's good right out of the pan, but beyond that, you can't do anything with it. Brewster's talking about the reduced balsamic. That's another thing we're going to do something with. Actually, you know what, Brewster? I saw in the grocery store the other day. I don't know if this is new or if I've just never seen it before, but they had balsamic reduction. They had a balsamic glaze in a bottle that was already, I guess it's already reduced or it's already thickened. They're even taking the work out of that because making a balsamic glaze it takes a little effort because it doesn't thicken on its own. You got to add sugar to it, or you got to add cornstarch or something to get it, or you got to reduce an awful lot of balsamic to get most people put sugar in it or brown sugar or something else to help it, but it's to get it thickened up, it takes a little work. But yeah, balsamic reduction, that was a thing. I remember when I was early in my career of doing videos, some of my friends that were making videos, we went through this stage where everybody was doing balsamic reductions on everything. It's about the same time that everybody started putting arugula on their hamburgers instead of iceberg lettuce.
I love arugula.
We were getting bougie with the arugula and the balsamic reductions.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, Yeah, Anthony, I mean, I think that's great. Sometimes, like, if I take that to work, and have that for lunch, yeah, I'm right there with you. I have that glaze and I'm going, woohoo.
Well, I learned a trick that I've not really shared with anybody. I can tell you about it, but instead of if you're going to do a burger, for instance, instead of making a balsamic reduction to drizzle on the burger, just mix a little balsamic vinegar in with your ground beef and you get that flavor there and you don't have the glaze to deal with, or you don't have to worry about a reduction. And it doesn't take much to accomplish that. Or you can drizzle some on. If you're flat top cooking your burger, you can do that. Oh, did they? Well, that's good to know. So Chef Tom he did a video on a glaze, how to make a balsamic glaze. I'll have to check that out. I
made a
wonder
balsamic glaze one time.
Russ, give me the quick 2-second tour. What did he thicken it with? Did he use a thickener or did he just reduce it?
He meant reduction.
Or he made a reduction, so he reduced it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I did it one time. The main thing I remember is like the vinegar smell. It permeated everything. Oh man, it was just like, oh, I didn't think I would ever get the smell out of my
Yep.
nose.
What do we need to recap, Tanya? What are the questions that I've got to look at? We got
Dude, I think
anything?
that's about it. You know, I was watching it pretty closely. So the rest said he
Okay.
doesn't remember him using anything to thicken it. And if you're doing a
All right. He
reduction,
just
you wouldn't need
reduced it.
to. Yeah.
Right. But it takes, like, if you start with like a cup of balsamic vinegar, you might get 1 or 2 tablespoons of a thickened glaze out of that. By the time you reduce it enough, there's not much. So it takes a good bit, and you got to reduce it to practically nothing to thicken it up. Horseradish. Yep. Levi, that's a thing. That's a good comment, because one of the things that people whine about when they're talking about hating steak sauces is that stuff that overpowers the flavor of the meat. And like A1 is a very bold steak sauce, and it's got the capability to overpower the flavor of the meat if you use too much of it. But horseradish, how many people, the horseradish dip that I make for prime rib is something that I love, and it's quite powerful too in excess. You use prepared horseradish, or fresh grated horseradish is just as good, and you got a couple tablespoons of that in with I don't know. There's a lot of different methods for making it. I like to make mine with sour cream and a few other ingredients that find their way into that. I've posted several different recipes for the horseradish dip. So,
Here comes trouble.
yeah.
Yep, it's
All
Meryl, the
right.
diva cat.
So, yeah, but this you're going to see more of this. I'm going to probably, I don't know how frequently I'm going to do
You
this. I'm going
cannot
to
have
do
the
this
coffee.
as the mood strikes. And when Jeff comes back with us, maybe I'll set it up where he and I we'll tackle 2 sauces in one episode. I'll do one and we'll have him do one, and we'll hit some of the other ideas. I made a list today of about 8 sauces that I think are amazing on steak that we'll cover and talk about. And next week, like I said, I'm most likely going to do, unless something changes, I want to do Brunswick stew, because that's another real easy thing. All I got to do, I use frozen vegetables for that, and I just dump all my ingredients into a Dutch oven and throw them on the smoker. And for the first bit, I'll leave the lid open and I stir it occasionally where it can pick up even more smoke, and then I put the lid on it, because all you're basically doing is heating that up. You got to let it cook long enough for the lima beans. I will put lima beans in it instead of okra this time, but you got to give them enough time to get softened up where they're not crunchy. So, and you can use multiple kinds of meat in your Brunswick stew also. I used to like to put chicken and pork in mine, but I don't have any chicken. Well, I do have some chicken. So I don't know. It may end up with chicken and pulled pork in it. We'll see. What else? I think we talked about the carbon steel pan. The carbon steel pan's not as thick as this stainless steel one. The cast iron pan has more heat retention, but I don't think either one of them sears any better. In all honesty, the thinner your pan is, the quicker you're going to sear the steak if you've got it over a good heat source. It's going to heat through more quickly and give you more flexibility. I would really like to sear my steaks. And the only reason I did this steak in that pan is because I wanted that fond to be part of this sauce, because it makes a difference. There's a noticeable difference in the flavor of the sauce with and without the fond. You could cook the steaks on the grill and then make this sauce in the pan, but you lose that fond part of it. You lose the the beef drippings and the stuff that's left behind in the pan, and I do think that's a big flavor enhancer. It also helps with the color of that sauce. It browns it up, gives the sauce a little bit of a tan color that you don't get if you don't have it. So, all righty, I think we're almost to an hour. Has anybody got any questions, suggestions for sauces that you'd like to see on a steak? I make a homemade version of A1 that's really good.
It actually really is.
And it's got raisins in it. And that's one of the
Yeah.
interesting things that makes that sauce what it is. I don't know. I don't know if the real A1's got raisins in it or not. I have to look at the ingredients on it. But the one I make's not quite as bold as the grocery store variety, but it's really good.
It's very tasty.
Yeah. We've made that several times. And the one I make probably tastes more like Leah and Perrins than A1, come to think of it, because I think Leah and Perrins has a more resembles that raisin flavor.
It kind of reminds me of HP sauce.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever had that one. I've seen it, but I don't know if I've ever bought any.
Yeah. All right.
Chimichurri. Okay. Carl, that's a good one.
See you, Russ.
That'll give me an excuse to go buy one of those tri-tips. I can't get picanha around here. I'd have to look around to see. I don't think I've got a source for top sirloin cap here. I could go to the butcher up the hill, but that grass-fed beef they have up there, that's a trendy thing, I know, but I just don't like it. I've got nothing against grass-fed beef other than the flavor.
I like it, but again, it's just, I have questionable taste in beef, I guess.
Well, I won't call it questionable. Everybody's entitled to their preferences, but I just don't prefer grass-fed beef. I don't mind the grass-fed grain finished stuff like I get from Porter Road. That's extremely good beef. So A57, Brian's actually what I call. That's what I named my sauce. Yeah, the A57 is my homemade version of the A1 / Heinz 57 / Leah and Perrins. So if you've got that recipe from where I posted it, that's the one. There's no cooking involved in that. You make it in your blender. I make it in the Vitamix. You just put all the ingredients in there and it's good to go.
John.
So,
hey, Janice. Yeah,
Janice
Meryl was trying to get my coffee.
Yeah.
She's she's definitely our cats get a little treat about this time every night, so she is definitely ready for her little treat.
They're waiting on me to come up and give them that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Boder grew up with grass-fed beef. I don't know. It's just grass-fed beef just does not have most of it. Now, I'm going to say I have had some grass-fed beef that had some decent marbling in it, but most of what I get just doesn't have it. Most of the grass-fed beef I've bought, the marbling in it's kind of weak. And yeah, Brian, we got some cold weather coming. We're going to be sub-freezing for several days in a row next week. It looks like starting over the weekend at some point. I bought me some new thermal tops to wear this week that are really, really going to do the trick. I got one of them on. It's a fleece lined thermal top that does the trick. All right. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me and come back next week. I think Jeff may be back with me next week. I'll have to ping him and see what his plans are. And but look for Brunswick stew next week because I know I'm going to make a batch of that I'll probably make that on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So,
Hey, Brian's gonna be up in Asheville.
yeah.
You gonna give me a
What
high five, Meryl?
Tanya works up in Henderson, outside of Hendersonville. So Asheville's about an hour west of me here. So
Yeah. Do it again. Share about your trick.
I haven't been up to Asheville since the storm came through.
Maybe.
So I don't know what is open and what isn't that's normally open. So all right, we're gonna shell out of here, guys. I appreciate it, and we will see you next week.